All right, this is ITS148, and it's first day of class. And I'm your instructor, Rich Alverson. I'm gonna switch to my, so you can see my screen here, this one. And I'm gonna not do that, maybe, okay. And so if you go to La Lima, you, and click on this course, I think it's this one. I'm going to start today by going over the syllabus, and then I'm going to go over the chapter 1 slides. I'm going to go through chapter 1. So this is the face-to-face version of this class, and those of you that are online, the online version, you've either dialed in here today now, or later on you're gonna watch the video of this class. And these are the times, and this is my office, Copico 207. I think my office hours are gonna be something like this right now on Monday afternoons, and then before this class, before this class. And the best way to get hold of me is email or text. I check my email, several times a day. And but if you have a quick question, you can text me. And the first time you text me, just tell me who you are, and then I'll attach your name to that. And you can also text me, like, for example, if you send me an email and I don't reply to an email, let's say you send me an email and it's been a couple days, and you maybe send me an email asking me to look something up or something, and I looked at it and then went on or something, or he asked me a question I couldn't answer right away. It's absolutely it's absolutely in your right just to send me a text saying, hey, did you get my email? And then I'll go look at it and at least give you a reply right at that time to tell you where I am or something, or to tell you where I am in answering your question. The textbook is this Murox book, and it's C# 2015, and I actually think we should start 128 with this textbook, but we don't. And of course, I can see why, but because this textbook is much more of a cookbook. It starts at the very beginning, where it introduces us to Visual Studio, and I'm gonna start from the beginning because there's some of you maybe didn't take 128 last semester. Maybe you took it like some semesters ago or something, and you gotta refresh your memory. Excuse me. Okay, so, and then you need to have a login for Visual Studio to be able to use the class computers, and it's free. But when you open up Visual Studio, after a while, it's going to ask you, maybe a month, it's going to say, please sign in, and then you can just make an account if you want to. I've got like 3 of them, so it doesn't matter. So these are the student learning outcomes. This is going to be expanded a bit in the future, soon probably. And way over here on the right here is the day-by-day class schedule, and we have the class number. There's 32 class periods in this semester. In this class. We're probably only going to use 31 of them, or 30 or so. We got spring break in here, and you got another holiday in there, and you got some holiday here. We're going to cover the chapters in this order. We aren't going to spend a lot of time on 1 because you know it already. 2, same. 3, 4. 4, it starts to get a little bit more. We'll start to get into the next section and so on. I should have listed the sections here. But then we're just going to go through all the chapters, spending a little bit more time. It's not until, okay, yeah, spending two class periods per chapter, and then we're gonna, and then this semester I'd like to go a little bit farther than I got last time I taught this course, and I'd like to get into databases. Chapter 17 is databases. So it's going to be something like this, the breakdown of grading. The midterm exam is just an assignment. It's just a bigger assignment. Same with the final. It's just a bigger assignment. Programming exercises are just assignments. And so there's going to be some small percentage assignments. Let's see, where you add them all up, and maybe there'll be 10 of them or something, shorter ones. And so if there's 10 of them, each assignment is worth 4%, or something like that. But these two assignments are bigger assignments. And I call them exams just because. But everything's take home anyway. So. And this semester, I'd like you to hand in or to submit your project. That worked out real well at the end of last semester, and I got it down now. I just open it up and run it. So I can run every one of them pretty easily. So so that's what we'll do this semester. But otherwise, it's the same. It's pretty much the same. If we look in the resources, right now, okay, so I haven't gotten the quizzes into the tests and quizzes yet, just like last semester, but I'll get them in there by Thursday. So in the meantime, I've given you, because the last time I taught this course, I didn't do that. I handed out quizzes like this. Yeah, handed them out every day, but there's still multiple choice questions. So, simple. And this comes from the book. So, when you page through the textbook, to prepare for this, to learn the stuff, and to do the assignment's going to come out of textbooks, or the assignment's going to be from the back of the textbook or whatever, back of the chapter. There's a lot of good assignments in the back of the chapter. This textbook gives us a lot of good projects to work on. You're going to page through the textbook, and as you're paging through, you can just find the answers to these questions. So that's all. And it'll be like last time, where you get as many chances up to the due date, and then after that, if you haven't done it, you get one chance to do it. And so I put the first 2 weeks quizzes on here. The first 2 class quizzes. Wait a minute, how many quizzes are there? Let's see what the grade book says. Oh, it's not here. I can't remember if there's, yeah, there must be a quiz every day. I'm getting my classes mixed up. Yeah, right. No, that's right. Quiz every day. Let me go back to here. 30%. I might put that down at 25% and make programming exercises more, simply because I want to be able to throw out some quizzes, and like in case you got a bad grade or you forgot to do it or something. And so I think I'm going to reduce that to 25% and throw out some, and because I don't want to. All right, and so they will be here, and I'm going to have assignments like last time, and so you'll submit your solutions. You'll upload your projects over here. You can use your Dropbox. To if you're working on something here and you want to save it and work on it some more at home, you can get good at zipping it up from the desktop or wherever, and then just uploading it to your Dropbox, and then if you figure that out, then you don't need to bring a thumb drive, or what are they called, a USB drive. You don't have to bring a USB drive. All right, so let's go to resources. Let's go back to resources. We have, there's chapter exercises here. Okay, so I'll probably take them from here, and you know, there's like a bunch of exercises here from the textbook, and then there's oh, this is where I'm going to put the class videos, and this is images for stuff. Here's the PowerPoint slides right here, and so today we're going to do chapter 1. We're going to do chapter 1. So let's open up the chapter 1 slides. I'm going to put it on the, I'm going to put it down in my thaw space. All right. So this is the, let me, actually, I think I can probably just play it. All right. What are you seeing up in this? Okay. By the way, you want me to share my screen? I'll share my screen with you. Just. Oh, do I have that? This thing? Oh, it's this one. And sharing my screen, I can do windowed. No. Share teacher screen windowed. All right. Boom. All right. Let's try this again. And this time I want to go. Okay, is that? All right. So you're gonna already know all this stuff, but you know it's always good to. This is a different author, so you're gonna hear stuff from a little bit different perspective. And since this is presumably the second time you've gone through this, you know, you're either going to reinforce stuff you already know, or you're going to catch things that you didn't occur to you, for example. All right, so we are going to learn to use Visual Studio, the latest Visual Studio, and I'm just going to be using Community Edition, so you can use, I think it's either 2015 or 2017 Community Edition. We're going to learn how to, in this chapter, okay, so you already know how to do this. You're gonna know about the form, you know about the form designer already. That's where you create from the tools, you know, you put your check boxes, your text boxes and so on this form. There's the code editor, and that's typing in your C# code, your .cs file. There's a solution explorer on the right, so you can see like all your files and stuff for the project. Hiding and adjusting windows for a project, building and running a project. You're going to be able to describe the difference between Windows Forms application and Web Forms application. Maybe it's not that important yet. And you're going to learn about the .NET applications, this .NET support framework, and what compilers mean, what intermediate language, assembly, all that. All the windows in Visual Studio, and what makes it possible to select a target framework. All right, so here, this is a Windows Form application running on the desktop. You know, we did this last semester. When you run it, that's the thing that you see. And if you were to just go down to the debug folder and double click on the .exe file, this thing would pop up like that. So even if you didn't have Visual Studio on, you know, you just go to the .exe file, double click, and your program should run. These are different types of .NET applications. Windows Forms, which is what we do here. ASP.NET Web Forms. Do we do that in 228? I don't know. Maybe we do. No, I guess we don't. Where do you learn Windows? All right, maybe we'll have to do a little bit of that in this course or the next course. This ASP.NET MVC, that's MVC stands for Model View Controller. And that's kind of a new paradigm for developing applications. It's similar to what we do using Visual Studio, where you have this division of labor, or you can have this division of labor where some C# programmers may be really good experts at using the design form and creating the forms, that the interface that the user sees. And there's a bunch of human-computer interaction research on for what kinds of inputs, what types of controls are more suitable, and so on. But maybe you don't dig right in the code that much. You certainly understand the code, you understand what it does, but all that logic, making sequences of data and getting the, keeping the off by one errors from occurring and getting your loops right is not something that you like to spend a lot of time on. That's possible with ASP.NET. It's even more possible in an MVC environment because you really are two different teams. I mean, it's and the view, the controller is kind of where all the code is. The model is where the database is and how the data is structured and stored. And view is the part that the user sees. Anyway, in this class, we're only going to do Windows Forms, or at least for the first, or for most of the class. We might dabble in some web forms a little bit. These are the different Visual Studio 2015 editions. I'm just going to assume Community Edition. The free one is Community Edition. And these are the different languages supported by Visual Studio 2015. There are more. It supports Python. It supports PHP. You got to pay for that. It supports a bunch of other languages that maybe aren't written by Microsoft, but are designed to be developed on the Visual Studio platform. But one notable missing language is Java. C# is actually Microsoft's version of Java. Microsoft used to call it Java, but then their differences were significant enough where they didn't want them to call it Java anymore, so they came out with C#. And there's actually more features in C# for teams developing code than there is in Java. Anyway, this is a nice illustration of the .NET framework. We have these .NET applications, or so they're called, and these are the languages that programmers use to develop applications. And then there is this library, or this framework that you are familiar with, because all those lines of all those statements at the top of a class, the ones that have all of the extra classes, the system classes that help you interface to the dialog boxes and interface to other things. Those are in that's the Windows Form classes, ASP.NET classes, and other classes. It's the .NETwork class library, and there's lots and lots of different libraries, and you can install them. When you install Community Edition, you only get the important ones. Anyway, and then there's this common language runtime, which is it's the language that interfaces to the actual processor, and it's common to all of these languages. So So they compile down to this. They actually compile down to an intermediate language, and then the intermediate language is executed on this runtime machine, it's so-called. And then there's we have the operating system and hardware here, where the operating system has all the programs that interface to the printer and the keyboard and all that stuff, and those functions are usually written in either like C or assembly language or something, which we don't really get into here. This is what the IDE, or the Integrated Development Environment, looks like. You're very familiar with this. Got a toolbox over here on the left, which is available when you've got a design form here in the middle, and you can add stuff to it. And then over on the right here is the Solution Explorer, which, oh, by the way, can you see my, if you can't see my mouse. I'll do something about that. Pen. All right, we have the Solution Explorer here on the right, and there you see the name, the project. Here's the project, and then this is a solution, and these are C# files and so on. And yeah, you're familiar with all this. Down here is the properties, where right now the form is selected. It's selected, so the properties of what's selected show up in the properties window, and so these are form properties. It's since these two things are pressed down, we're seeing properties here. This is the start position, center screen. What the text here says, calculate investment. That's what you see up here, and so on. And there's methods. The methods, you can see the methods which are the event handlers for all of these objects here, for all these controls. And so like when you click on the calculate button, that invokes an event handler, which is a C# program, which is going to be down here in this file, presumably. Yes. And that name of that event handler is, you click on this thing and you'll find a property that's the event handler, and it'll be the name of the method that is defined in here. So anyway, this is what it means for a C# application to be compiled and run. Okay, so this is the IDE here, the Integrated Development Environment, and that's Visual Studio. That's what we just saw. That's this. And really what it does is it produces a bunch of so-called source files, and these are all just text files. Okay, there's no graphics or anything. There's no graphics, just all text files. It's the text files you see. It's the .cs files, and even these other files too. If you open them up, it's a bunch of lines of text. And that's all it is. It's a bunch of lines of text, and that's all these source files. Your .cs file, your code is in here. The .cs file, which defines all the positions of all of these controls, which is in here. This designer.cx, that's where that is. And the integrated development environment. This form picture here, with these nice picture buttons and everything, this is all Visual Studio just presenting. It's a visual way, it's a drag and drop way of creating this file here, which contains a bunch of coordinates and names of the tools that are at that coordinates. Like these are radio buttons, and so it's going to say radio button, which is this. And it's going to give the screen coordinates of this radio button and the screen coordinates of this radio button, and so on. So you got all these source files, and then you say run, or you say build, and if you say run, it builds and then runs. If you can just say build if you want to, and all these source files get sent up to the C compiler, And the C compiler chugs away, takes lots of passes over the code, produces a lot of intermediate files and so on, and produces these. These are text files also, but it's your code translated into a more primitive language, but not machine code yet, but a more primitive language that will be executed to accomplish what your program has told it to do. And then these are the references to the .NET, to all the code that you haven't written, but those lines up at the top, those .NET library classes that you include in your .cs file. And then this is, I guess, where it's executed within the .NET framework. This is what the Visual Studio Start page looks like, as you know. Where are we? Halfway through these slides. When you want to open up a file, when you want to open a project, this thing opens up, and you go down to your to the folder, and you find the solution file, .sln file. And that's what you select. You select the solution file. And so you open it, and then the Visual Studio, the Visual Studio Start screen comes up, which in this case was like this thing probably. This comes up. So every C# project has a project file, and it's got an extension cs.proj. And it keeps track of the files that make up the project and records various settings. Every solution has a solution file. It's the .sln file that keeps track of the projects that make up the solution. When you open up a project file, Visual Studio opens the solution that contains the project. And when you open up a solution file, it automatically opens all the projects contained in the solution. You try it a couple times, it'll make more sense to you. Project file can be stored in the same directory as a solution file or in one of its subdirectories. Just want to make sure I'm recording, and we are sharing my screen. Okay. This is the designer form window as we've seen previously, and here are controls on the form that are currently selected. All of the labels, which are these things here. And here, so you can select all four of these and then text align them all at the same time. Here's .cs, this is Visual Studio code. This is C# code. C# code. And you recognize what this is. This looks like the event handler for the calculate button. And you notice this textbook uses the convention that I like, which is the button calculate click event handler, and it's inside a try catch. And here we are converting text box to a decimal number, which is stored into a decimal variable called yearly interest rate. And we have another decimal variable called monthly interest rate, which is the calculation of the yearly interest rate divided by 12 divided by 100. So it looks like we are entering this. This is entered in like, if it's 75%, it's going to be 75, not 0.75. This extracts out the value for years from the text box, you know, calculates months. This class goes to 3 o'clock. Yeah, this class goes till 3 o'clock, right? Yeah. 3:15 to 4:30. Okay. And then it looks like we're doing some sort of calculation here and so on. This is the code, they call it the code behind file. And one of these is the form. It's not on here. All right, and here's the Solution Explorer. This would be the form. And it's got, these are references. These are the .NET library references. You recognize those. And so on. These are .cs files. It looks like they're in this one, the calculation functions are in a class here, which is, it looks like there's a depreciation form, there's an investment form, and there's a main form, which probably calls one of these two. And then all the calculation functions are in this separate calculations class file. Oh, Solution Explorer uses different icons to distinguish between the course source code files and the forms and so on. Each form has 2 C# source files, as you remember, and so each file contains a partial class, which you remember, it says partial class up at the top, because it's, you know, part of a class, and the CS extension contains the code that's entered by the programmer, and designer.cs contains code that's generated when the programmer works with the form designer. So this is the Visual Studio C# integrated development environment at work, and it's a pretty sophisticated part of Visual Studio, where you have this forms designer, and you just drag controls over and put them wherever you want. And what's happening inside is there's code being generated which goes in this designer CS file, and it contains like the coordinates of the control. You're just dragging it around on the outside on the form, but as you drag, the coordinates actually change, and when you're done dragging it, that's where the coordinates are, and so on. Now, you can get Visual Studio for the Mac. Maybe you've seen it. Visual Studio for the Mac does not have the form designer. Visual Studio for the Mac, when you're designing a form, you have to write the designer.cs code, which you don't do. I mean, you just use the Windows version. But you know, back in the old days, we didn't have these form designers. We had to, let's move it over here. Let's change the coordinates. Let's see what it looks like. We'll see what it looks like. No, let's move it over a little bit. And you change the coordinates and you see what it looks like. So, you know, you run the thing to see where the controls end up on the screen. And, oh, you want to move them over a little bit. So then you go back and you mess around with the coordinates in here, and then you run it again and you see what the form looks like. So, you know, that's one of the really powerful things with Visual Studio, and it's one of the things that enables you enables us to have this sort of separation where people can become experts in using the form designer, and other people can become experts in hacking out the code that interfaces to the controls. That, you know, someone's going to write the event handlers for the controls that are on the form. Now, someone's got to design the form, and then someone's got to write the event handlers for the controls on the form. And so those are like two different. Those can be two different experts now in a big team. Program.cs file contains a C# code that runs the first form. So if you look in this program.cs file, there's not too much in there, but it does identify the first form, and that's, you know, when you run the program, the form that pops up, and you may want to so if you want to change the starting form, you would do it in there. You're familiar with the floating windows. Your windows can float if you want to. I don't usually like floating windows. I like to pin them on the side. You know, this is a floating window. I like to pin them as you've seen me do before. And you can rearrange windows. You can undock a docked window so it floats on the screen. You can, you know, drag the title bar away from the edge of the application. You know, so this is summarizing various ways to manipulate, to move the windows around in Visual Studio to how you like them. You know, it's your preference. So I'm not going to tell you what a good way is to have the screens on Visual Studio, but what I am going to suggest to you is good ways to name your variables, which is what I did last semester. And I was telling you last semester to write your variables, to name your variables like he does it in this book. So now the examples that you see in the book will be a lot closer to how you would write them. And so here I use this pin you know, I like to pin the controls. A form that's displayed with, this is what, when you actually run the thing, which you know about. Here we see it's running, you know, it's a red dot here, and we see the diagnostic tools thing running. It's been running about 16, 17, 18, almost 19 seconds, I guess. And this Windows has popped up and is waiting for somebody to either click on this one or this one or this. So you don't need to run. You can build, and you can build to see if you have errors. And you can run a project by just clicking the Start button or pressing F5. So you know all this already. Dialog box for upgrading. Are we at the end? Yes, we are. All right. Yeah, you can select different .NET frameworks also in the application properties for the project. All right. So that so those are the slides for this. Those are the slides for this chapter 1, and so when you're done with the slides, you can go over to you can take a look at the quiz. No, it's not here yet. It'll be there by Thursday. Resources, quizzes. There's actually a whole bunch more here, but I've hidden them. The primary components of the .NET framework are the .NET Framework class library and you recall that diagram. Go back and look at that diagram. In the .NET framework, the purpose of the .NET Framework class library is it gives provides pre-written code that can be used in .NET applications. It manages the execution of .NET applications, specifies the format of compiled .NET. So you pick which one it is, and you should know the answer by now. What's the purpose of the common language runtime? So there's the answer there. So anyway, this is very simple. It's only 5 questions. Wow, that's easy. All right, so I actually, it's 2:36. Is that it? I don't think I have too much more to cover today. So next time we'll go into chapter 2. Wait a minute. This shouldn't say Monday, right? This should say Tuesday. Today's Tuesday. I got my days wrong over here. The dates are correct. The dates are correct. The days are wrong. Okay, I'll fix that. So anyway, chapter 2, and then let's see. How can I look at let's see if I still go here. Let me open up where do I have a copy of the book? Let me do this. I'm gonna put this down. Let's see, vitalsource.com. Let's see if I can, excuse me while I see if I can get in here. Let's see if I have this book in here. Here we go. Mirox 2015. So if we look, I don't have access to the book anymore. Okay, I gotta contact the publisher to get access to the book again. All right, so that's good. So I guess I don't have much more today. So I guess I can let me stop sharing my screen. So review chapter 1 and take the quiz. And on Thursday, or by Thursday, I will have the actual quizzes in there. So don't take it until you can take it online. And I'll have some assignments. I'll have an assignment for you on Thursday. And we're going to do the same thing I did last semester, where we will where I'll give an assignment and I'll do large portions of it for you, and also the text, and I'm going to use textbook assignments. So last semester I didn't use the textbook assignments. I kind of made up my own, but the assignments I think in this textbook are real good, and you're building applications. It's nice. So we'll be doing that. All right. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I will see you see you Thursday. Thanks for watching.